and Merry Christmas! Welcome to week 4 of Advent and Holy Yoga. And whether you're coming to your mat today just bubbling over with excitement and anticipation for Christmas, or maybe you had to crawl your way and fight your way onto your mat, maybe you're somewhere in between, just sort of feeling numb and overwhelmed by everything going on. No matter where you are, can I just say well done for being here, for making it onto your mat, for making space in your schedule to make room in your body and in your heart for more of God. A God who is just so wild about you that I know these next 20 minutes are just going to be fantastic. So we're on week 4 of the Naptime Diaries Advent Devotional, and the theme for week 4 is embrace. So that's what we're going to focus on as we move and we breathe and we practice today. We're going to start the first few minutes of our practice in child's pose. So if you know that that might be uncomfortable for you to sit in for a few minutes, why don't you just grab a pillow, a blanket, something that you can just slide underneath your torso and just sort of lie on top of to begin with. Finally, like every week, music is such a great way to deepen your yoga practice. So cue up some music or find the link in the comment section below for a playlist on my Spotify channel that I designed just for this class. Grab a blanket, hit play on some music, and let's do some yoga.
We're going to start today's practice in child's pose, widening our knees and letting our hips sink down into the mat. If you know this is going to cause you discomfort, I want you to grab a couple of pillows or a blanket and place it underneath your torso so that you can lie your cheek on the pillow. You can stretch your arms long out in front of you or reach them back behind you towards your feet. And just begin to surrender. Draw your presence onto your mat, into your body. Notice your breathing and let go. We've been doing a lot of breath work over this month of Advent, and so I want you to notice if it's just easier for you to step out of the craziness of your day and step into rest. If it's easier to take big, full inhales and long, releasing exhales. As we go through these next few minutes, I want you to continue to lengthen your inhales. Really breathing into your back body here, feeling a big, full physical expansion as you fill yourself with air, and then a long, slow, full body surrender as you let it all go with your exhale. Now, in the story of Jesus' birth, we have this pretty pivotal moment when Mary and Joseph are approaching Bethlehem, and she's about to give birth. But there's nowhere for her to stay. They knock on all of these doors and everyone says, sorry, there's no room here, keep going. And I've read that story so many times it just sort of it becomes part of the story, but let's stop and think about that for a minute. Who turns away a 9-month pregnant woman? Who says, sorry, no room here, closes the door and lets her go on her way? Or who oversees this happening and doesn't offer up their room for her to stay in? What about by the time Mary gets settled into a barn and goes into labor? The birthing pains are pretty loud. And I would imagine that the people around her would probably hear what was going on. Did nobody think to go in and help her? To invite her into their home to help her give birth? It's pretty crazy to think about it in those circumstances. And yet, how often are we that innkeeper who says, sorry, no room. Jesus, we're full. We don't need you. There's no space here. But you can go out in the barn. I mean, I'll say yes to you, but why don't you just stay over there in the barn? This week, the week that we celebrate the birth of Jesus, our theme is embrace. And embrace means to welcome with open arms. But how many times do we say yes to God, but keep him at arm's length? Send him out to the barn. Maybe we do this because we don't fully trust him. Trust that he works all things together for our good. Trust that he will provide for every need. Trust that he will give us the desires of our heart. Trust that nothing we do could ever make him love us less. Or maybe we relegate Jesus to the barn because we don't feel worthy. Don't feel like the in of our heart is clean or presentable enough to let him in. But the thing is, unless we embrace Jesus and the fullness of who he is, we will never find freedom. We will never know hope or love or life. The Gospel of John tells the story about Jesus 33 years down the road in his final days, and he's with his disciples. And it says that Jesus got up from the supper table. He set aside his robe and he put on an apron. He poured water into a basin and began to wash the feet of the disciples, drying them with his apron. And when he got to Peter, Peter said, "Master, you washing my feet?" And Jesus said, "You don't understand now what I'm doing, but it will become clear enough to you later." But Peter kept going. He said, "You are not going to wash my feet ever." Jesus said, "If I don't wash you, you cannot be part of what I'm doing." Wow. Jesus is saying there's this embrace that has to happen. You cannot clean yourself. I have to do it for you. You have to let me in. You have to let me do my good work in your life, or you're not going to be a part of the fullness of what I'm doing. Day 3 of this Advent devotional has this beautiful quote that says, "Let's be innkeepers who say yes. There is room. Jesus, be born in this place. Bring new life to this heart." Father, I ask that you would give us the strength and the courage to say yes with open arms to you. Make new space in our heart and our bodies as we practice yoga today. Show us places that we need to open the door and let you into. Thank you, God, for your faithfulness, for your relentless love that never stops knocking on the door of our hearts. Amen. Begin to come forward just a little bit on your hands. I want you to take your right arm and slip it underneath your left arm, rolling onto your right shoulder, coming into a pose called Thread the Needle, and we're just going to feel a yummy deep stretch in between our shoulder blades and especially along our right shoulder. You can keep your left hand where it is, or if you want to deepen the stretch, you can crawl your fingertips over to the right corner of your mat, lifting your hips as you need to find more space. Breathing into this stretch. Good. Return to center and let's just switch sides. Reaching your left arm underneath your right arm, rolling onto your left shoulder, taking your fingertips and crawling them over to the left corner of your mat, opening that right shoulder just a little bit to make a little bit more space in between your shoulder blades. Good. Come back to center and come all the way up onto your knees, your hips on your heels. If this is uncomfortable for you, you can take that blanket or that pillow you were using in child's pose and slip it underneath your hips, or actually between your thigh and your shin. So you're just creating a little bit more space for yourself. Good. I want you to take your arms up overhead and then reach your right arm out down to the mat. Stretch your left arm up and over, rooting down through the left side of your body, feeling a deep, yummy stretch on the left side here. With that left hand, you can open your left shoulder up to heaven, or you can turn that shoulder towards your mat, changing the place that you feel that stretch. Good. Come back to center. Place that left hand down on the mat, your right arm up and over. Once again, moving and making space as it feels good, opening your shoulder or twisting it down towards the mat. Beautiful. Coming back up to center, I want you to stretch both arms straight out to the side of you, palms facing forward, engaging all the way through your fingertips here so you feel every muscle in your arm engaged. Now take your right palm and flip it over so it's facing behind you. And begin to lower your head over to the left side, reaching your left hand over to touch your right ear and just using the gentle pressure of that left hand to draw your ear closer to your shoulder. Continuing to send energy through your right fingertips and taking care not to scrunch those shoulders up to your ears, but let them relax deep into the stretch, using your breath to make space. Good. Come back to center and let's do the opposite side. So stretch your left arm long, turning your left palm to face the back wall, and your right hand gently draws your right ear closer to your right shoulder. Shoulders are relaxed. Breathing into this stretch. Good. Return to center. Draw both arms behind you, and if you can clasp your hands here, do. If you can't, just grab opposite elbows. And using the weight of your hands or your elbows, begin to sink them down towards the mat as you open your heart up to heaven. Good. Release your clasp and draw both hands together in front of your body, tucking your chin, rounding your spine as you exhale all the air out here. This is just a modified version of cat and cow on our knees. Good. Take those arms, reach them behind you. Take whatever clasp is comfortable. Inhale to open your heart. And then exhale, draw your hands together in front of you, round your spine. Tuck your chin. Exhale all that air out. Let's do this one more time. Draw your arms behind you. Inhale to sink them down to the mat. Stretch your heart up to heaven. And then exhale, palms to touch in front of you, round your spine. Press those hands away from you. Beautiful. Place your hands about 8 to 12 inches on the mat in front of you. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, and come into a shortened downward facing dog. So this might feel a little uncomfortable. So keep a good bend in your knee here because we're really emphasizing the stretch on our hamstrings and our calves. Let's create some space between our shoulder blades by really pressing down into the mat with your entire hand. So not just putting the weight in the heel of your hand, but in between your fingertips. Gripping the mat here. And I want you to think about having a turtle neck here. So you're growing long out of your spine rather than those shoulders scrunching up and your head coming back into your body. Good. Remember to be engaged through your core so you feel a lift in your hips. And I really want you to reach down through your left hand as you take your right hand and reach it towards your left ankle, gently twisting here. So nothing else changes. We're still finding length in our spine, reaching our heels to the mat, but we're finding a gentle twist here as we do this. Good. Come to center. Place that right hand down on the mat. Now take your left hand, reach it over and grab your right ankle. Twisting here. Return to center and walk your hands back to your feet, hanging in forward fold here. Grab opposite elbows, release your head and your neck, and just gently sway from side to side, keeping a micro bend in your knee to protect your low back. As you exhale, just let it all go, making more space in your body and in your heart for God. We're going to root down to rise all the way up, bringing your hands overhead and your palms to touch. And as you exhale, gently begin to press your hips forward and bend backwards, reaching your fingertips along to the wall behind you. Opening your heart. If this is too uncomfortable, you can take your hands and place them on your low back for some support. Beautiful. Come back to center. Bring your hands to your heart and close your eyes. Press down through your feet and just take this moment to talk to God. Put yourself in the Christmas story and imagine yourself as the innkeeper. Ask yourself, or even ask God directly, honestly, what part of your heart are you making room for Him in? And where might you be saying, sorry, no room here? Slowly begin to lower yourself down, folding forward here. Place your hands on the mat and step your left leg back, lowering your knee, coming into a low lunge on the right side here. You can draw your arms up overhead and gently bend back just like we did standing a minute ago, opening your heart up, inviting God in. Good. Return your hands to the mat. But let's begin to open up to the left side. So crawl those hands out in front of your hips, coming up onto the heel of your left foot. changing where we feel this stretch, opening the inner parts of our hips here. You can keep your fingertips right on the mat, or you can bring them together at your heart. But focus on really drawing your tailbone towards the mat and lengthening the crown of your head toward the ceiling. Place your right fingertips on the mat and stretch your left arm up, gently opening your heart up to heaven here. Drawing your shoulders away from your ears and breathing into this twist, into this heart opener. Good. Return both hands to the mat. And let's begin bending into our left knee, placing our hands on either side of our left foot, squaring our hips to the back of our mat, and coming just straight into a low lunge on the left side here. Sinking into that hip. Good. Draw your arms up overhead here and gently bend backwards, really thinking about bending in your upper spine, your thoracic spine. So there's a really good opening across your heart rather than a crunching in your low back. Breathing into this open space. Good. Return your hands to the mat. Crawl them over to the right side, placing your hands in front of your hips, and come up onto the heel of your right foot, keeping your fingertips here on the mat or bringing them together at your heart. Growing long as we stretch deep. Good. Place your left fingertips on the mat. Reach your right arm up and open that right shoulder, reaching your heart towards heaven, twisting the upper part of your back towards heaven. Beautiful. Crawl your fingertips to the center of your mat, and with a big inhale, I want you to rise all the way up, straightening both legs. And as you exhale, turn your heels in and your toes out. Bend your knees, begin sinking into your hips, coming into goddess pose. Now this is a fiery strength building pose. Your hands can come to your hips here for support. You can bring them together at your heart, or you can stretch them out long to the side just like we did at the beginning of our practice. Once again, we draw our shoulders down, draw our tailbone down, but lift up through our heart. Breathing here to find strength. Can you sink a couple inches deeper here? Beautiful. And on inhale, point your toes back to the long edge of your mat. Straighten your legs, lift all the way up. And then on an exhale, fold forward here in a wide-legged forward fold. Let your head and your neck hang loose. But keep your quads engaged, protecting your hamstrings here. Good. Walk your hands over your right foot, pivoting onto the ball of your left foot. And then step that right foot back to meet your left and press back up to downward facing dog. I want you to stretch your right leg long behind you. Really engage all the way through those toes. And then come forward onto your hands. Bend your knee. Bring your right knee to your right elbow and place your shin down on the mat, coming into pigeon pose on the right side. If this is uncomfortable for you, you can come to your back. Cross your right knee over your left thigh and draw that left knee towards your face. But if you're here pigeon on your mat, on an inhale, I want you to grow tall, squaring your hips to the front of your mat, not rolling onto your right hip, but both are facing forward. And then on an exhale, begin to fold forward to the degree that feels good for your body. Maybe you turn your palms up towards heaven as a sign of surrender. And I want you to now picture yourself in the Christmas story in the barn with Mary and Joseph and all the animals as Jesus is being born. And I want you to let the fullness of his birth just sink in. His name is Emmanuel, God with us. We can look back now with hindsight and see the full story of Jesus' life. We can see that he came to die. that this baby came to give his life as a ransom for many, came to be crucified and conquer death so that we can no longer be slaves to sin and to fear, but to be daughters and sons and co-heirs with Christ. Friends, if this is hard for you to comprehend, let gratitude be the key that unlocks the doors of your heart. Just say thank you. Thank him for what he's done. Today, yesterday, 2,000 years ago. Embrace him, friends. Let the fullness of his coming, of his birth, wash you, saying, yes, God, I want to be a part of what you're doing. You can wash my feet. You can enter my heart. Slowly begin to crawl your fingertips up. Press your hands into the mat and reach that right leg long behind you, coming back in a downward facing dog, and just moving that right hip as it feels good. Good. Place your right foot back down on the mat. Stretch your left leg long behind you, engaging energetically all the way through your toes. And then come forward, bending your knee, placing your left knee down towards your left elbow, coming onto the shin. Squaring your hips off to the front of the mat. On an inhale, grow tall here. Find length. And then on an exhale, find depth by folding forward as far as it feels good to. Closing your eyes, opening your hands. Just talking to God. Good. Slowly begin to crawl your fingertips back up. And let's just roll right onto that left hip, stretching both legs out long in front of you and lying all the way down on your mat. Drawing your knees into your chest here. And we're going to go straight to Shavasana, but if you have one more pose in you that would just feel really yummy, you can take that now. Maybe that's some gentle spinal twists here. Happy baby. Or you can just lengthen out, surrendering to the mat, closing your eyes, coming into your final resting pose. I want to read to you from Isaiah. This is in the Old Testament. This was a prophecy of Jesus hundreds of years before he actually showed up on earth. And this is what it says. This is in Isaiah chapter 9, starting in verse 2. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. For those who lived in the land of deep shadows, light, sunbursts of light. God, you repopulated the nation. You expanded its joy. Oh, the people are so glad in your presence. Festival joy. The abuse of oppressors and the cruelty of tyrants, all their whips and cudgels and curses, are gone, done away with, a full deliverance. For a child has been born for us, the gift of a son for us. He'll take over running the world. His names will be Amazing Counselor, Strong God, Eternal Father, Prince of Wholeness. His ruling authority will grow, and there will be no limits to the wholeness that he brings. Friends, I wish you just the merriest of Christmas this week. I pray that you know God so much more deeply and fully and embrace him with every part of your heart this season. Stay here in this final resting pose for a couple more minutes. Merry Christmas. I'll see you back here next week.